Everyone's always talking about global hotspots, right? Like those places where one wrong move, one little spark could set the whole world on edge.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we're diving into one of those today, but with a twist. Turns out this one all comes down to a tiny little island, practically unheard of, I'd bet, that's quietly propping up the entire Iranian regime.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, actually, when you think about it, how this little speck of land in the Persian Gulf, Karg Island, it's called, somehow became the linchpin of Iran's entire economy.
Seriously, I was going through all the research you sent over, the reports, the analysis, even some old satellite photos of this place, and it's pretty clear. Almost all of Iran's oil exports, all that liquid gold, flows through this one tiny little island.
And it's not even almost all. When you really dig into it, it's everything. 100% of their oil exports, which is kind of mind-boggling if you really, when you stop and think about it. It's
Yep.
more than just a hub or something. It's their lifeline.
Okay, so paint the picture for us. Why is that such a big deal for Iran specifically? Like, why is the single point of failure so important?
Well, imagine, okay, so you've got this country, right?
Mm.
And more than half of their budget, everything, literally everything they use to run the government, to, fund their military, even to support groups like Hezbollah, all of it, it all comes from oil money.
Okay.
So now
Yeah.
picture that revenue stream just suddenly vanishing. Poof, gone.
That's got to be like nightmare scenario if you're Iran. It's like having your entire country's fate balanced on a razor's edge or something.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what makes Karg Island so strategically important, and also incredibly vulnerable. It's almost surprising when you think about it that it hasn't been a bigger target. You know what I mean?
I was just thinking that with everything going on in that region, how tense things are, especially between Iran and some of their neighbors, you'd think taking out Karg Island would be like at the top of the list. So why hasn't it happened?
Well, see, it's not just about military strategy and stuff,
Yeah.
although, I mean, obviously that's a huge part of it, don't get me wrong. But it's also about unintended consequences,
Okay.
the kind that could, ripple outward and create like total chaos on a global scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking about oil here, right? And when oil sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. You know what I mean?
Totally. It's like that butterfly effect thing, but with oil tankers and the stock market crashing and yeah.
Exactly. And for a good example, think back to 2018 when Trump slapped those sanctions on Iranian oil. Remember
Yeah.
what happened?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Global markets went totally haywire.
Yeah, and gas prices here went through the roof. I remember that. Although, didn't Saudi Arabia step in to, like, fill the gap there
Yeah.
to keep things from totally, spiraling out of control?
They did, yeah. But the question is, could they, or even would they, do it again?
Hmm.
That's a huge question mark. And even if they tried to, would it even be enough at this point? Because, and here's the other thing, you don't corner a country like Iran without them having a few of their own tricks up their sleeve
Right.
and their ace in the hole. You ready for this?
Hmm.
Control over the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, yeah, the Strait of Hormuz. That's one of those names, it's like, even before I knew what it was, it just sounded ominous.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it basically comes down to this super narrow waterway, almost like a bottleneck, geographically speaking.
Okay.
And get this, Iran controls one entire side of it. And something like 20% of the world's oil supply flows through that, like choke point, every single day.
Wow. 20%. It's hard to even picture how much oil we're actually talking about there.
It's an insane amount. And the thing about Iran is it's not even about controlling the strait outright, like shutting it down completely.
Right.
It's about what, uh, you know, those military strategists call asymmetric warfare.
Mm.
Basically, using your strengths, whatever they are, even if they're unconventional, to level the playing field.
Okay, so what does that actually mean in this situation?
It means they don't have to, go toe-to-toe with a superpower, like the U.S. and win.
Yeah, yeah.
All they have to do is make using the strait too risky, too unpredictable for anyone, even someone like the U.S., to feel comfortable relying on it. You know what I mean? And just like that, boom, 20% of the global oil supply, it's gone.
And they can, actually pull that off. They've got the firepower for that.
Think about it. We're talking anti-ship missiles, mines hidden all over the place under the water, and just one of those can take out a supertanker.
Yeah.
They've even got these, swarms of small, fast boats that could basically overwhelm a much larger vessel.
Oh, wow.
Remember those attacks on the oil tankers back in 2019?
Vaguely, yeah. That was Iran behind that, right?
Nobody ever officially, definitively proved it, but let's just say the message was pretty clear. Even a small-scale disruption there
Yeah.
can send these, like, shockwaves through global energy markets.
Right.
Now imagine a full-blown blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. We're talking about economic chaos on a scale that's, like, almost impossible to even comprehend.
So it's like this terrifying game of chicken, where
Hmm.
nobody wants to make the first move because the fallout could be catastrophic for
It's
everyone.
a high-stakes standoff.
It's a
What is fueled by oil and, geography and decades of geopolitical maneuvering. It's a lot. But, and here's the thing, just when you think you've, like, wrapped your head around all of that, there's another layer to consider,
Huh.
another factor that adds, like, a whole new dimension of complexity and risk to this whole already volatile situation.
Okay, now you've got my attention. What is it? So there's this other layer of complexity you mentioned, right? Something even beyond this whole immediate standoff over Karg Island and the Strait of Hormuz. What are we missing?
It's the long game, the thing that almost nobody seems to be talking about. You see, Iran knows, probably better than anyone else, that that this whole oil weapon thing, this leverage they have, it's got an expiration date.
Because the world's like slowly but surely shifting to renewable energy.
Bingo, exactly. As we move away from fossil fuels, as electric cars become more and more the norm, as solar and wind power start to really, like, take center stage, that influence, that power that a country can exert through oil, it diminishes.
Yeah.
And it's already happening, which is, I think, the really wild part.
And for Iran, that's gotta feel like, I don't know, like watching the clock tick down or something, especially with their economy being so reliant on oil.
You got it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to, well, the elephant in the room, I guess you could say, the real prize in this whole equation,
Yeah.
their nuclear program.
So they're thinking, what, like, if they can't control the world's energy with oil in the future, they'll just, I don't know, do it with nuclear power instead.
It's not even really about energy production, not in the, like, traditional sense anyway.
Okay.
It's about leverage, deterrence, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
A nuclear Iran, even the possibility of a nuclear Iran, it changes the whole geopolitical calculus. Suddenly, they're not just like a regional player anymore. They're a force to be reckoned with globally.
And they could achieve all that while the world's like distracted by this whole immediate crisis over oil, which itself could, explode at any given moment. This whole thing it's a lot. It's making my head spin a little bit, honestly.
It's a lot to unpack for sure. But it's just crucial, I think, to see the bigger picture here.
Right.
What happens over there in the Persian Gulf, this little, I mean, it's not physically little, but this corner of the world that, honestly, most people probably don't even think about, like, ever. It has potential to just totally reshape, global power dynamics for decades to come.
So what you're saying is this tiny island, this Karg Island, it's not just about oil and tankers and shipping lanes. It's like a microcosm of this much, much bigger story. A story about energy and power and the future of global security in a world that's changing faster than we can even really keep up with.
Exactly. And the biggest question, the one that honestly keeps me up at night sometimes, is will they be able to achieve their nuclear ambitions before the world manages to kick its oil addiction?
Yeah, that's a question without an easy answer, that's for sure. Well, you've definitely given us and everyone listening, I'm sure, a lot to think about. This whole situation, it's a tangled web, isn't it? Geopolitics, economics, energy, history, it's all woven together.
And it really, I think, it just highlights how interconnected we all are.
Yeah.
What happens on one side of the planet, even in a place that seems as remote, I guess, as Karg Island, can have ripple effects that reach us all. It's incredible.
That's the thing about these deep dives, isn't it? We start digging into a topic and we always seem to uncover these hidden connections, these threads that tie everything together. But big thanks to our listener for sending us down this rabbit hole in the first place. We learned a lot and we hope you did too. And until next time, keep asking those big questions and never ever underestimate the power of a seemingly insignificant island to change the world.